Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Rugby on Forever Sports. An SAA side has been named to take on Munster this week, and jeepers, so many talking points to talk about, and nobody really seems to talk about the fact that there are three scrum offs in the side. People are busy talking about the various options and the fact that the Dupree twins, for example, are back. But Grant Williams in as potentially as a utility backs, and then Humber covering 9. I think it's going to be very interesting to sort of see exactly what's going to happen. Before we look at the side itself, please do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as well. We've got a lot to go through, but before I want to do that, I'm going to put the team on the on the screen, and I'm going to ask a question. Are you happy with the SAA side within inverted commas? And then I'm also going to we're going to basically go through the team and the press release as well, and so talk about exactly what the Springboks management has said about why they have decided to go with the side. So first of all, that is the side. In the front row, it's Tuko Tsuno, Joseph Dweba, Thomas Toy. You then got Jason Jacobs, Ruben Nokia in the second row, Peps Boutelezi, Albert Lowe, Jean-Luc Dupree wasn't even supposed to be in the squad, does start. Herschel Yankees next to Johan Goosen, Leon Zas, Cornel Hendricks, Henk van Veek, Cinnamon Hartzenberg, Aple Fassi, the back line. Off the bench, Andre Hugo Fentas, Imperial Munton Zima, Sazi Sandi, Dan Dupree, Sika Bozenoche, Grant Williams, Senea Nahamba, and Johnny Lombard. A lot to dissect, people. A lot to dissect. And we've got Zwandile Stick, who's currently in the press conference right now. We'll be answering a lot of questions about that, so the press conference will be up today. Jan Goosen in the press conference with him. His comments will be out tomorrow. So let's go through the press release before we really get stuck into this team. So, for example, over here, the Dupree twins, Dan and Jean-Luc, were called into the squad on Sunday, so they were called in yesterday and have been named. A couple of other news, for example, Rassi Rasmus has not stayed with the SAA squad. He has traveled with the Springbok squad to France. He will be assisting them remotely. If we look at some of the options, for example, they have named, for example, as looking at some of the various bench, for example, they have named Grant. So Grant Williams got scrum half next to him, which means I'm very interested to see what Senea Nahamba is supposed to be, given the fact that he's been named alongside Grant Williams. They're young. Obviously, it's a very young former front row and former junior Springboks and Senea Nahamba and Johnny Lombard, who are both listed as utility backs. So that in itself is pretty interesting. To see what sort of positions they reckon Senea Nahamba actually covers. As I said, there's so much to dissect. There's so much to go through. And I think that, what we're going to see now this week, Thursday, is we're getting a lot of answers to some questions regarding, what sort of players could be fitting in where and stuff like that. Speaking on the team, this is what Zudria Stick said. He said, "We are pleased with the quality of the squad we selected, and we are confident that with this thrilling blend of experienced and young players, have what it takes to perform against Munster. One of the main reasons for selecting SAA and Springbok teams for the year-end tour was to cast our net as wide as possible to test our player depth less than a year out from the Rugby World Cup, while also giving as many players a possible top-class game time. Most of these players have either been in the Springbok squad in the last 2 seasons or they have been on our radar. So this is an ideal opportunity to see them in action against what will be a physical and challenging encounter." So he said that the SA coach had the luxury of spending the week with the Springboks last week, where they attended all the coaches' meetings and training sessions to give them a taste of Test rugby and what they'll expect this week. And this allowed us to hit the ground running. The coaches, players, and team management know what is expected of them, and we are working hard to implement the structure as effectively and efficiently as possible. And I have no doubt we will be a tight unit by the time we take the field. Speaking on the challenge of Munster, Stick said that they are one of the top clubs and they balance their physicality with exciting backline play, so they're going to be tested thoroughly. That said, we have named an equally exciting team and we have a number of leaders in the core positions. Every one of our players will also want to make the most of this opportunity to throw their names in the hat for World Cup selection, which will serve as extra motivation. A reminder that the assistant coaches he is talking about are Bafana and Claire Cook, current SC Under-20 coach, Joe Mongalu's with the Sharks, Vian Dupree, the scrum coach from the Griquas. So those three have all been joining Zondita Stick with coaching this side, which will run out against Munster on Thursday. couple of comments coming in, and yeah, as I said, there's a lot to talk about here. So for a start, for example, confirmation that Evan Lewis and Marvin Uri are with the box, and they are on standby due to injuries. So, for example, obviously looking at the injury of Luot Diaga, I want to imagine that Marvin Uri, for example, could be starting at 5. I don't know if there are any other potential injuries around the sort of the loose chair, for example, but Evan Lewis being retained in the box squad as a result of that. For me, I think I suppose, yeah, the two big selections as are the fact that the number selection, the two selection. It has been confirmed that Luot Diago, for example, is out for this weekend, so you can understand why they're not going to release, for example, someone like Marvin Uri. But I think they do want to see what Jason Jenkins brings. So as I'm saying, there's so much to sort of go through. But let's look at some of the comments. Ivan says, I'm happy, but there are definitely some talking points. Will this game be broadcast? Yeah, so it will be on, I think it's Virgin Media Sports have gotten the rights for it. So we will be doing a video tomorrow that comes out, which will say how to watch the game for free using ExpressVPN. John Lewis says, Libok and Gonzalo are there traveling with the Springboks against France. Yeah, 100%. That then basically whoever's not involved in this SAA squad will probably be still with the Springboks. Major Smurf reckoning, Russ doesn't even make the SAA squad. He has been confirmed that he is still with the, as we say, with the Springbok squad. Major Smurf said Libok will make a debut on Saturday against France. Bench is very strange. No money in the SAA side. Must be in the SAA side for the French clash. 3 scrum halves. So this is what I'm saying. I think in many ways it's almost as interesting to see who's not included in the SAA squad than who is, in fact. But let's go through it. So for me, obviously the big talking points, the two du Preez twins, and a lot of people are asking where they are, why they've been involved, for example. Well, there we are. They're back. And I'm interested to see if that was always the plan. If for example, the injury to Luot Diaga, and it sounds like there must be an injury within the loose chair, given the fact that Evan Lewis has been retained apparently as injury cover. So you sort of wonder if Peter Stave Vitoria or Siya Khaleesi might be carrying an injury, or anybody really could be carrying an injury there. Which is the reason why the two du Preez potentially have been brought in. Obviously, it makes sense from them, from a location point of view. They could just pop over to Ireland. They're already in England, for example. So, yeah, they're back in the squad, and you've got Dan du Preez starting at 8. Jean-Luc is starting at 8, which is, that in itself is interesting. Because, you often see Dan du Preez starting at 8 a lot more. But I think, obviously, Evan Lewis, was set to start at the back of the scrum, but has been retained with the Springbok squad because of injuries. And it'll be frustrating, I suppose, if he got retained and then doesn't actually play this weekend. But, that's kind of how the cookie crumbles. At the end of the day, you want to have your best players available for the Springboks. So, if there's an injury issue, then that's why they've kept him in, so that he can be available. But yeah, so I think that's quite an interesting sort of selection there. I don't think there's too much within the pack. I don't think there are too many other sort of like weird selections. I think Pepsi Buthelezi was always going to have to be on the flank, given the fact that they did name Noche in the squad, as well as Evan Lewis, who we expect sort of to drop down. Albert Lowe also is always going to be sort of in the number 7 jersey. Very interesting to see how Pepsi goes in the number 6. I think he'll be fine there, and I think it's quite a nice balance loose chair. Herschel Yankees gets an opportunity to start, and I was actually just watching Chasing the Sun recently, and he's someone who's just really sort of dropped off the radar, isn't he? Had such a good start to his international career. It was almost like everything he touched turned to goal. And this is a big chance for him, I think. You're sitting there thinking, is he going to make the World Cup? Because you currently got 3 scrum halves you're ahead of him. I think Grant Williams at the moment is also really probably potentially ahead of him. So, it's a very big task for me for Herschel Yanks to get back into sort of that top 3. But I think this weekend, or this Thursday rather, is the perfect opportunity for him to do that. Do it in SAA side. And show that you still have the quality, you still have the desire, you still have what it takes to play for the Springboks. Johan Clausen at 10 was always going to be a selection. I would have liked to have seen Lombard there, but at the end of the day, as I said in the release, they want to see what they want Johan Clausen as an option at 10 for the World Cup, and as a result, you've got to play him. You've got to see if he can still play at this level. You've got to put game time into those legs. You've got to see if he can cope, and whether he's in form, whether he's going to be good enough to go there as well. The rest of the back line, Leon Zas, Suleiman Hartzenberg, updated fast as a back three, I think was pretty standard. I don't think, unless we're going to see Feinberg Gomezulu in this side, I think that was pretty sort of straightforward. I was interested to see if maybe Esterhuizen might be released to play on the Thursday. But Cornel Hendricks, Henkoff, and Vake, for me, is a very exciting centre pairing. You've got all the experience and the solidity of Hendricks next to the sheer excitement of Henkoff and Vake. And I think these two are definitely players who, for me, could be on the Springbok radar for the World Cup. Cornel Hendricks, so experienced, can play across the back line. For me, is a very easy solution to any injuries you might pick up before the World Cup. So very interesting for him to get an opportunity this weekend, or this Thursday rather. This whole not playing on a weekend is weird. And then the bench, Andre Hugo Fentas, Pierre Montezima, Salih. It's a very young front row. Dan de Priest, Sukumoza Noche, far more experience coming on there. Grant Williams, Nahamba, Gianni Lombard. So, yeah, Nahamba has been listed as utility back, so probably covering 9-10, which is an interesting prospect, isn't it? The idea that Nahamba, they reckon that he can play at 10. And I think the one thing which maybe even put that idea, I mean, look, I think he has, slotted there a couple of times due to injury and stuff, but what for me I think was a big sort of factor is the fact that he kicked really well for goal. For Lions the other day, and I don't think that's part of his skill set that we really didn't know about. To be honest, we didn't think that it was going to be. We didn't think it was an option, but there was a yellow card, and I think it was to Hendrickse, and Nahamba said absolutely fine, give me the clean tee, and he kicked actually pretty well. It wasn't just straight forward kicks he was getting in there, but he was nailing them pretty well. He was striking the ball nicely. And then obviously Lombard covering 10-15, could probably play in the centres as well. But you've also got the likes of Jan Goosen who can go to full back. So I reckon we'll probably see Lombard moving into full back and potentially Nahamba getting 10 minutes at 10. I don't know. Unless they just leave Nahamba on the bench the entire. What will be interesting is if Jan Goosen goes down early, because then I reckon you'll see Lombard going into 10. And they'll hold back Nahamba. What will be interesting to see is if they do put out Nahamba, do they try him at 10? I mean, who would have ever thought that somebody like Saneda Nahamba could be a fly half option for a South Africa A side? Not the Springboks, but it's the next big thing, which is quite. I mean, it's a very non-traditional selection. But what are we saying here? What is your suggestion to fix 10 at Springbok level? Well, at this stage, it sounds like the suggestion is to give absolutely anybody an opportunity and see if it works. Yeah, but Stian saying, I reckon tomorrow's team announcement will have a few surprises. Very exciting. RVH saying, clearly it's second most important position, if not first. Look at England and New Zealand, for example. They have plenty of amazing flower halves. Must admit, England's amazing flower half yesterday I thought was pretty average. Would have gone with Jean Christus over Jean-Luc. Henry said, Nahamba can play 10, Lombard can go in 15. He said, not a big fan of playing players in crucial positions if that's not their main. Hirschel is lucky to be there. Grant and Ellis to start. Felix saying, we want to risk at 8 for France. Happy with Liebach. Cheslin back to 11. And Mapimpi wide. It's all about France, guys. Well, if Mapimpi's and Cheslin on the same side, then Mapimpi's at 11 and Cheslin back to 14, I think is probably what you mean. I'll be surprised if Evan Rowe starts at 8 this weekend, unless there is a couple of injuries. I think Jasper Wiese does have the run in. I would almost like to see Kwaka Smith, especially given the pace that France play with. I think his cover defense and his breakdown work will be very important there. But obviously, a lot of our backs can kick for goal. It all depends on the level, though. I mean, this is the funny thing, isn't it? Is, for example, you look at this SAA side, and you've got Johan Goosen, who's a very capable goal kicker. You've got Nahamba, who's apparently a goal kicker, and Johnny Lombard, who's a pretty capable goal kicker. There's actually more goal kickers who kick for their franchises in this SAA side than there are in the actual Springbok side, which potentially gets named tomorrow, unless Martin Liebach gets named there. But you've got 3 options as goal kicker across this 23. And 3 decent options. Whereas you look at the Springbok squad, and there's sort of 3 part-time options. There is no sort of full-time goal kicker within the Springbok side. So that's quite an interesting element, isn't it? Especially the fact that that's such a big talking point at the moment. The fact that the the Springboks just don't have a goal kicker. But yeah, no Sasha and Zulu. He remains with the main squad, as far as I understand. We'll obviously get more clarity on that as the press conference come out. There's both a Springbok press conference as well as an SAA press conference. The SAA press conference is currently underway. There will be a Springbok press conference. I think it's about 4 o'clock this afternoon. It's with an assistant coach, so I imagine it will be with Dion Davids. It's interesting to see what both of them have to say about the various squads and stuff like that. But Togo says happy for the lineup, and Campus saying Williams are back at 15, Arlington to 11, Gimmer, Pimpy, Race, and Colby at 14. A lot of people asking where Jean Augustus is. Guys, I don't think, to be fair to them, I think given the fact that there are 2 late call-ups, going with 2 players who've been within the system, understand how it works. I mean, they're effectively going to have 2, maybe 3 training sessions before they play Munster on Thursday. So they'll train today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. You've got 3 training sessions to get it right, and they are very much copying the Springbok blueprint. So if you've got 2 players who've been playing with the Springboks, they understand the blueprint, they understand how it all works. It's far easier for them to slot in, and then somebody coming into the squad and nobody and doesn't really know what's going on. Especially when you think that you're playing next to somebody like Pepsi Buthelezi, who's yet to play within the Springbok setup. So if you suddenly have Pepsi Buthelezi and Jean Augustus, both players who never played within the Springbok setup, next to Albert Lowe, who's only played a handful of games, I think it would be quite unbalanced. But yeah, so we will have the Springbok press conference up now. It'll be Dion Davids and Frans Maherbe, who chatted to the media earlier. They confirmed that, for example, Lourdes Diaga is unavailable for this weekend. It was interesting to have that Springbok press conference before the SAA side was actually announced. So that press conference will be up in the next sort of hour, and then we'll have the SAA side presser up just shortly after that. So the game is, I think it's at 9 o'clock South African Standard Time. Where is this press release? It'll have the time of the match. Here we go. Kickoff is at what time? Surely you guys are telling us what time it is. They don't have a time yet. They had it on the schedule. Where's the schedule? Here we go. So Hopper's 9. The kick off on Thursday night, so it's a bit of a late one. We will obviously be live for that, and we'll also be posting a video tomorrow on how you guys can watch that. It is being shown on, I think it's Virgin Media Sports. So with ExpressVPN, you can watch it for free. No sign up or anything like that. It's on a free-to-air broadcaster. So those of you who haven't done it yet, then do so, because then you'll be able to watch it, and we'll also show you exactly how to watch France versus Springboks this weekend. David's saying they just deleted the post on Instagram. Well, they've sent it all out, so I think it's a bit too late to be changing too many things. But yeah, I'm interested to see if there will be any changes to the SA. Obviously, we know that there's going to be changes to the Springbok side, because Lourdes Diaga has been ruled out of the clash, so he is injured. It does sound like there could be another injury potentially within that within the loose trio, which is why Evan Roos has been retained. So I don't want to Twitter see if there's any cool points being made or any say. But yeah, so also pretty big news, the fact that Rassie has gone to France. He was going to be okay, a couple of interesting things here. Right, people, here we go. Some interesting things being confirmed. So Sasha Ngoma Zulu was not considered for selection. He took a knock last week in training. and as a result, has not been named as a precaution. Liebach was set to play, but apparently was pulled back. Busy getting some of the stuff out of the press conference now. So that's quite interesting. So Mani Liebach potentially set to make his debut this weekend, if the fact that he has been retained with the Springbok squad. Yeah, that has been confirmed. So Mani Liebach was set to play for the SAA side, but has been held back. So I reckon we could be seeing potentially Evan Lewis this weekend. We could potentially be seeing Mani Liebach as well. No Femi Gomezulu, who I think would have played this, but did take a knock apparently in training, which is why he's not been named. So he won't be named in the Springbok squad. I don't think we really expected him to be named in the Springbok squad anyway. So yeah, I think it's quite a fun 23. If there's nothing else, I think it's fun, and I'm all for fun. I really am. I think this is actually going to be a lot of fun on Thursday. I think we can really get nitty gritty about it. But at the end of the day, I think it's a really nice combination of youngsters and experience. You know, Thomas Toy, for example, has been playing tremendous rugby, but just can't get into that 23 because Vincent Cocker, Fast for Herbart's too good. Gets an opportunity. Joseph Dweb, a massive game for him. He really needs to show that he can still play at this level. They've given him a lifeline. They've thrown him a lifeline. They've thrown it out there, but he's got to grab it with both hands. He's got to nail his line of jumpers. Jason Jenkins back into a Springbok setup. Let's see how he goes on Thursday. He could potentially be, the understudy to Eamon Etzebeth going into the World Cup next year. So a massive moment for him. Pepsi Buthelezi, a bit of a new position, but I do think that he's got more chance of potentially making Springboks in the number 6 jersey and moving forward than number 8, which is absolutely stacked. Herschel Yankee's another one. Jan Wilson, both of them also. A bit of a lifeline out here. They've got to reward the Springboks for Springbok management for the faith that they are being shown and the chance that they are being given. Leon Zas, I think that's somebody as well who can really put his hand up and say, listen, if a Pimpy starts dropping off, I'm here. I really rate him. I think he's got a fantastic all-round game. Simon Hartzenberg, I think, is quite fortunate to have gotten so far so quickly, but he needs to now show why. Apri Fassi, who's fallen out of favour with the Bok management, the perfect time to sort of give them a bit of the middle finger and say, I should be involved. Henk van Wyk, Cornel Hendricks, the big question is Henk van Wyk ready? This will give us an opportunity to see. Cornel Hendricks, for example, somebody for me who I think is a very easy alternative to quite a few players if we need to bring in somebody last minute. Off the bench, a lot of exciting youngsters. Andrew Hugo Fenter, Sampier Mantanzima, Sai Sunday. All these kids who are coming through the system. Dan Dupria, Sikomoze Noche, players who've been around. They played Springboks, but they haven't ever sort of nailed down a spot. Can they impress? Get themselves back into World Cup selection. Grant Williams, a man on really good form. He's going to be pushing Herschel Yankees. Sinea Nahamba, who was almost lost to rugby a year ago, has come to the Lions, now reignited his career, gotten his call up. He's now been named as utility back. Johnny Lombard is somebody who we'd almost forgotten about when he went to Japan, despite being so highly rated before then. He's come back to the Lions. He's playing well. Bang, back in the Bok frame. So I don't think there's anybody, in that 23 where there isn't a bit of a backstory, where there isn't a little bit of, what can you do type thing, I think that's what makes this team a really fun and exciting one, is that there's little small narratives attached to almost every single player inside this 23. And that doesn't make you excited. I don't know what does, to be honest. Also, we get midweek rugby. How cool is that? We basically get like a mini Bok game on a Thursday. It's miserable weather here in Gauteng. It's been raining for the last week. And yet on a Thursday evening, I'm going to be able to go for a beer, come home, chill for a bit, and then go, right, should we go watch a bit of SAA versus Munster, boys? I mean, how cool is that? What more can we ask for? Some other comments saying, Theo saying it's quite a good team. OVH saying, the game earlier this year against All Blacks where we ran the ball from our 22 was the most hype I've been watching rugby. I hope we can play that again. Herschel needs to take control, says Felix. Winner the name in the Springbok side tomorrow. It's about lunchtime, I think, about 2 o'clock, I think it is. Zaz shows up when needed, says Felix, 100%. I like seeing the Dupree twins there. They've been playing well for Sale Sharks. Mr. Ober saying, do you think there will be any change to the Springbok backline this weekend? I don't think there will be any changes, to be perfectly honest. But you never know unless you see Mani Liebach coming in and Willemson moving back to full back. Why name 2 scrum halves on the bench? Well, it sounds like Femi Gomezulu did take a knock, so there aren't actually that many options. So they are going to say to Nahamba, fantastic, we'll back you at cover 10. Go forth and do the business. Chris saying he's glad to see the Dupree brothers back. Phineas saying Herschel needs to work on his defensive game, hence is now in SAA. Where they're playing in Cork, I think. it is. Yeah, so and they kick off at 9:30 on a Thursday. Where the so ask what we cut booze out of our lives. Yeah, no, listen, what are you supposed to do? Hey, obviously, the mini Springbok game during the week. Think I'm going to take leave on Friday because the Browns is going to flow. I love that. Looks like a more attacking team. Hope they play a different, more positive start for the Springboks. Would have been awesome to see Sasha on Thursday. Where's Moyne Liebach? Moyne Liebach has been retained in the Springbok squad as a result, as a result of potentially being involved this weekend. Apparently, so it's in the press conference, Williams has been mentioned as a scrum off on wings, and they'll be mentioned as scrum off and fly off option. Gianni as somebody who can just play across the entire backline. I'm telling you now, Gianni Lombard is a very interesting option for the Springboks. And obviously people are going to say I'm just saying that because of the Lions bias, but he just fits for the Springbok mold. You know, we talk about utility players. Lombard can probably play 10, 15. He can probably play at inside center. And I reckon he can cover both wings, to be honest. A very skillful player, very athletic, not afraid to get stuck in defensively. So I think that he becomes a very interesting prospect because I do think that he's very much in the mold of what Springbok management are looking for in terms of players that can play in multiple positions and cover lots of different roles. So I think that's for the reason for me. I think that's why he's probably put him ahead of the likes of a Buta Chamberlain, for example, of a Jordan Hendrickson even, is that utility that, you know, it brings you so many different options, which is from a senior manager point of view is exactly what they want to see. I did ask Q, are you happy? And 160 people have voted. 87% of people have said yes. 12% have said no. But as we were saying, Munster's not going to be easy. Brent's saying is looking from the Bulls injured. I think he's playing better than Dwebe. Yeah, Johan Kobela is not available for selection. Ivan says Hickert and Vake will knock down the door, I reckon. Sanelli has always been a hell of a skillful. Not sure why he lost favour with the coaches. Wonder who will replace Lord at the box. Jenkins. No, Jenkins won't be involved because he's involved in this. So it's either going to be Marvin Uri, I reckon, or we will see Franco Mostert drop into that second row. Potentially see Marvin Uri off the bench. I'm sure they can't say I want to see Dan DePriere there, although Enko is excellent. I want them both, can't choose. I'm going to the games today. We'll enjoy that. And Salman Murat should replace Lewis, although Franco might start. I don't think we'll see Salman Murat replacing Lewis. Salman Murat's predominantly always played most of his rugby in the number 4 jersey. So for me, it's it's going to be a case of it's either way you sacrifice Franco Mostert off the bench and start. I would just start Franco at 5. I think that's just your best option, and then you can put Evan Lewis on the bench. Put Marvin Uri on the bench, for example. Peter Steph does cover 5, so you could potentially get away without not having Slock on the bench. I think that for this particular game, I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. Very keen to see the Munster side that gets named. Obviously, no Ireland internationals will be involved in it, but it should still be a pretty strong side, and it should be very tricky conditions. And I think that's going to be quite interesting because it's in France next year. It's in France, so like it won't be terrible conditions of the World Cup. September, October. It's not going to be particularly cold. I don't think it'll be too rainy. But it is nice to see how sort of these players can play in tricky conditions if we do get those sort of conditions next year. So I think there's a lot of nice little small narratives being built into this game, and I think that is going to be very fun. We're going to wrap it up there, people. So it's a very interesting squad. We will have another video up explaining a couple of things, such as the Leebox selection, the Leco even worse note, and sort of going through a bit more and giving an update on the Springboks. We will also have 2 press conferences up today, one from Zandile Stick, talking about the South Africa A side, and one with Dion Davids and France Maherba talking about the Springbok side. We then have a Springbok announcement tomorrow. I think it's at 2 o'clock. Let me just confirm that. 1 o'clock team announcement tomorrow. We will be live. Certainly we'll be live tomorrow at 1 o'clock for the team announcement. Expect a video going up just before then with the team as well. So the best thing to do if you want to actually be up to date with what's going on with all things Springbok rugby and South African rugby, subscribe to the channel, but more importantly, turn that little notification bell on, because as soon as we get information, bang, you've got content going up, telling you guys what's going on, explaining to you guys a little bit more depth than, for example, a tweet and stuff like that. So tomorrow we're going to have a Springbok press conference at 1 o'clock. They'll be explaining the selections, and there'll obviously be Springbok press conferences every day this week, except for Thursday. But there will be content coming up for press conferences going up every day. And then from a South Africa A perspective, there will be another press conference on Wednesday, I think it is, with Bafana Ntleku and Thomas Toy, which is the captain's press conference. And I'm really keen to see what Bafana Ntleku has to say, because he's such a talented coach, and I think he's got a very big future ahead of him. So it'll be very cool to see him within that sort of setup and stuff like that. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining me. We'll see you guys all very soon. Please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, I'll see you guys all tomorrow for the Springbok squad announcement at about 1 o'clock.